Samfel, you've directed Flushed Away, Paranormal, Tale of Despero, and now Chicken Run 2.
You can't make me stay here. She's left the island. What is that? Molly!
The truck's taking chickens to some kind of farm.
Well, hey, that doesn't look so bad.
Oh, that looks so bad.
So my first question to you is, why? Of all the things you could do with your life, of everything that you could do, why are you directing movies about the subject matter that you're choosing?
I fell in love with animation quite a long time ago, and then a number of times I fell in love with it as I was growing up in the 1970s in the UK. There was some amazing stop motion animation, especially on TV, and it was just an era. And people won't know. And I'm showing my age here, so I'm turning. This is us. Whatever. I'm old.
I'll put it on the screen for them.
Yeah, the clangers, knitted
Bagpuss,
Bagpuss, Bagpuss, so magical, and just like real things coming to life. Real things coming to life. The magic of, especially stop motion, I think. Although I'll work in any medium. I'm not a purist. And then in the 80s, I was doing sculpture, fine art sculpture, making mechanical sculptures, but all with found objects and making them have sound and stuff. And then I run into the Quay brothers, Street of Crocodiles particularly, Jan Schwankmajer, Dimensions of Dialogue, and Alice, the masterpiece, Alice. And then I started making my own stop motion films. I gathered some equipment, very basic film equipment, and started making things that moved. And I can remember it clearly, like that. I did a 3-minute reel of film, 16mm film in my basement with a couple of lights, and I was just making things move and transforming things and moving the camera as well. And I got this bit of film back, and I was just smitten with the magic of just the magic of stuff coming to life, And I'd had Terry Gilliam as well, to the 70s stuff, the Monty Python cutout stuff he did. So I don't know, I've just always been, I don't come from an artistic background particularly. My family I went to a bog standard school, and my family are fairly bog standard. Bog standard family.
Do they know you think about them?
They're lovely. They're gorgeous and brilliant and lovely, but they're fairly, so, it wasn't in the family. it was just this kind of thing. I don't know. So it was just, I don't know, I'm just drawn to it. It's a really arduous path each time. Each film is an arduous thing, and you're always back to square one at the end. Although they're slow to make, and I've made now 4 films in the last 20 years. It's taken me 20 years to make 4 films. So that's slow and arduous, but I think they stand the test of time. And there's always something in them that still delights me, I love the characters in Flushed Away. But
you're now the director of the sequel to Chicken Run, right? Massive movie. That's a huge movie. How the hell did that happen?
Kind of just by chance again, I've known Peter Lord for a long, long time. Like when I got out of eventually coming out of my basement, I started to make more and more stop motion films myself, and I taught myself how to do the whole thing. And I ended up making a horror movie out of the nursery rhyme of the 3 blind mice. It's called The Big Cheese. It's lost. It's on film. I need to get it transferred. But it was good enough to kind of get Aardman's attention, and then Peter Lord took me on at that time. So early 90s, I joined Aardman, and I've been in and out and around and about, and I've known him a long, long time. And then I was in, weirdly, and I don't do this often or at all, I was at a party at 10 Downing Street.
During lockdown, wasn't it?
No, it was really a long time ago. It was like 17. So 2017, and there was just a celebration of animation, UK animation industry, and So we were all there, and Pete was there, and he said, "Look, we really want to do another movie with you. We've got stuff on our slate. Come and have a look." And I went to look, and it was like they had lots of good projects, but there's Chicken Run sitting there, like twinkling, twinkling, and kind of like sort of like luring me in, and just so kind of tempting, but also kind of slightly scary. And it's like, but when you're kind of a little bit daunted by something, I tend to, if I'm daunted, I tend to be more attracted to something, because I think
run towards your fear kind of thing.
Yeah. There's sort of, I don't know, you get near the edge of the cliff, there's just something in your gut. You're kind of like, ooh, I actually do need to tackle. This feels like it's meaty and it needs tackling. But also, frankly, there's an audience. There's an audience for it, and that's important. That people want it. Not trying to force some kind of weird. Yeah. So you always got. I mean, more projects don't get made than do get made. To be honest, I mean, I've made 4, but I've got dozens of notions and in various stages of development but they don't quite fit at the right time. And then it just felt like Chicken Run's got this audience, and also kind of a little bit like a sleeping giant in a way, like something that was like really special and very relevant still to now. And so not just wouldn't just be a nostalgia piece. Could be something that could play now for people now.
That's the real danger of it, isn't it? Like, it's the first thing is you don't want to play it as a nostalgia piece. Like, look, remember the chickens back 23 years ago, everyone, check out the chickens.
Yeah. And just a perfect, to be too precious. Yeah. That was one part of it. It was like, oh, you get quite tight and quite precious about something like that. And then you can't change anything, and you can't shift it at all. And it wouldn't live then, I don't think. Yeah.
Because it really does have, I mean, established world, you've got established characters, motifs, a very distinct visual style, and I'm curious, how then do you get to push on that mold, that cellophane, to kind of push your own voice through as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, so I started in 2017 now, you see, it's 23 now, 6 years. And like really like 2 years was exactly that. Just trying to find the edges and trying to get in the driving seat, actually, and trying to get that feeling. And it's not just a intellectual thing, but that gut feeling that like, let's go. I'm going to go with my gut on all these decisions, because ultimately, if you're directing, that's what you have to do, because you've got so many things to keep moving. You've got to be able to kind of like instinctively direct. And so, 2 years it took, took that time, I mean, I think what was helpful was starting exactly where they ended up, like on the island. And so that was helpful. I think
on your island, behind
they're not here at the moment, but they'll be out later. I'll be in my feathers, like mucking around with them. But the music's helpful, like the really strong themes in the music, so that gets you back in the world quite quickly. And then the look, actually, the technique, because it's a timeless technique. So you make a set of puppets again, Ginger and Rocky and Mac and all of those classic characters. You build them again and you animate them in exactly the same way and light them in the same way as they did in the late 90s. It's actually kind of a timeless medium, So again, that was helpful in sort of grounding it. Really, and it took a long time. It did take a number of years, but really our ultimate path was to follow Ginger's story and to be telling the next chapter of Ginger's story. That took a while to get there, but when we got there, it was like, you know, like the first movie is she's an amazing, you know, protagonist, you know, very strong female protagonist, you know, not the first ever strong female protagonist, but like a significant one. And then Aardman's canon, if you like, you know, like actually quite quite unusual, you know, like unusually idealistic and noble and you know almost like quite iconic, I think, you know, like a Bodicea or Joan of Arc or like some kind of very iconic strong female character. So like once we latched into her, I think her and thinking about her story, what would be the next challenge for her, motherhood, give her a daughter, make that daughter kind of like a chick off the old block, like kind of like her. And that great conflict that we found was that, you know, Ginger spent all of her life trying to achieve freedom and win freedom. She gets freedom, she creates it. It's beautiful. It's like chicken Wakanda. It's a fabulous place. She brings her daughter into this place and says, there you go, Molly, there's freedom. Live in it forever and never leave. And Molly's like, she's got a different idea about freedom, you know, and like that conflict, I feel, you know, it just gave us the path and it gave us a continuity. And also, you know, like in Ginger's idealism, her notion, her feeling that, you know, she could have escaped any time in the first movie, but she wouldn't. She would not leave until she got every chicken out of there. Like we're going together. And that kind of idealism and that caring for like the plight of strangers or the plight of others, the community, that's still so relevant today. Well, that notion is so for me, it's just such a current thing in our world. But that was there in the first movie, you know, so so really, I'm saying in a long-winded way that following Ginger kind of like allowed us to kind of like tap into the first one, but like bring it into the present, you know. Yeah, you know, but yeah, so, you know, I could go on. I mean, I think, sorry, I will add one last thing, but then the other note, the next thing that really then, but the things that allowed me to make it change were like Molly, new character, meets Frizzle, new character, a younger perspective on the world, a new fresh. I really identify with Molly in many ways because like she's young and she's slightly foolhardy and reckless. That's me in my view in this movie, actually, like in this production. I'm like the young, slightly foolish, reckless one that's out to kind of try and break it open again. Yeah. And then the idea of nuggets, you know, like a new world of industrial farming, industrial food production, sci-fi element, a kind of moving into the early 60s, shifting, that allowed us to start in the world we knew, the familiar world, and shift into a kind of a new look and a new, so the shape of the story kind of was helpful to me, you know, in order to try to kind of find that balance.
I'll admit this to you, which I probably shouldn't. But when I first read the title and saw the images released, Dawn of the Nugget, no part of my brain connected that to chicken nuggets as an actual thing.
Yeah,
bizarrely.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a clever pun on calling Molly a little nugget.
Nugget, you know? Yeah.
And it was only until it's revealed what goes in the buckets. I was like, oh God, why didn't I?
Yeah, no, I think fair enough. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your forgiveness. Yeah,
I agree because I felt that too, but I quite liked that ambiguity early on. That like because she is the nugget. Of course, she is. She's the little nugget that pops out. But she is also the antagonist. You know, Molly is the antagonist certainly in Act 1 and through Act 2 for Ginger, the protagonist. And I don't know. I mean, you know, you do these things. I don't think anybody even notices these things. But if you look on Molly's feathers, they've got little purple accents, purple-coloured accents on them.
Yeah,
that's the same colour as Tweedy. That's Tweedy's colour. So Tweedy's outfit is the purple. We lit Tweedy with his edge, rim, purple rim light as well. So it was the color of antagonism. There you go.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
No, people
that's what we
will
spend our
notice
doing,
that.
like fiddling, like talking about these things and like
Those
discussing
meetings
everything.
finally came to something. Yeah, film academics. That's what they live for. To spot that kind of stuff and it's also a beautiful visual metaphor. Like, why else are we making visual medium without exploiting that to the best of our degree? Otherwise, you might as well just write it down as a book if you're not going to paint it at the same time as well. And I love those kind of touches. I think that's really beautiful. This film, it's funny, we talk about the past moving into the future. Obviously, you're using what I loved you said is the timeless technique, because you can put these films beside each other and they look like they were made in the same era, really and truly. Yeah. But you're using a lot of tricks as well to build up the scale of this. I mean, the scale is incredible. But the technique of animating in the corn shaft, all the corn and the popcorn. Oh my God, how many chickens are in the background at any one stage? You're just walking into... I mean, I don't know what discussions you had about this, but it must have been just like, how are we going to do this? This is just ambitious.
It was this time they're breaking in of it, and it's the bigger, better challenge of it was all very exciting in the first year or so. Like when we were like drawing it and like talking about it, and then when we got into it, it was like, oh my God, this is really difficult and like constantly difficult. Like it was like just. I hats off to the crew, because there was a stage where I was thinking, I don't know if we can do this. And the crew really came through, and it is all about scale. You're right, and then the first movie, Great Escape with Chickens, they've got like the chickens down in these little huts. They're all at chicken scale. They're all confined. You can do it in one pass, it's all in camera. Send chickens out into the world to break into the human world. They're in the land of the giants, like constantly in the land of the giants. So like so in that, a lot of the time we're using fairly old 20th century techniques of just building things at different scale and compositing them together again. I mean, stop motion's been digital for a long time. I mean, Corpse Bride was the first digital stop frame movie. Ever since then, it's grown as a digital medium. You've got green screen, rig removal, compositing, all of everything that you'd get in a 21st century digital movie happens. But yeah, so most of the shots there were 2 units shooting. Like over there you were shooting human scale, and over there they were shooting chicken scale, and then we'd have to combine them back together again. So that drove the production manager crazy, because he's constantly trying to schedule two shots for every shot. And then matte painting, miniature, like you can see the thing behind me, that's a miniature scale background set, and then these houses here are like a bigger scale.
So you must be a tiny man then to fit.
I am very small.
Yeah, to fit in that world.
Look, here I am. Just going in my house now. Oh.
Goodbye. Thanks for your time. Technology.
It's time for some seed. But yeah, then like popcorn was real. Like the VFX guys were like, do we want us to simulate popcorn? It's like, no, let's get sacks of popcorn and pour it on the set, and then you can just jiggle it around, and it looked rubbish. So then they had to, one of the animators, Alistair, figured out how to do it. Like he figured out how to animate corn in just like the right way. And so that was all old school. But then the chicken crowd, so there were set extensions though. There was some, like we built half a set and then they CG extended it. So it was, but everything was, whatever's digital was always based on a thing that had been made, like a thing that had actually been built. And then crowds, like we built 30 chicken puppets for crowds. And so they worked a lot of the time, but then after a while, it was like, we want to go deeper back into the set. So we scanned those chickens and animated them digitally. And I don't know why stop motion animators don't like animating crowds.
I've no idea why.
What's wrong with them?
Well, there's a great moment where I think it's you're overlooking the I don't know how to describe it. You'll give me the word, but I'm going to just jumble a few sentences at you, and you can. This kind of strange, eerie chicken facade utopia that feels very much like Christmas in heaven, kind of thing. I don't know what to call that. The
We called it Butlins for chickens, which like the UK audience will understand. But
Yeah,
I guess it's a low rent Disneyland for chickens.
yeah,
like it's
pretty crap Disneyland, really.
It's a crap
but
Disneyland
it's
for
like a
chickens,
cool amusement park, or not amusement park, just a playground.
Yeah, we had that look over the balcony. You track over and you look down on them. Yeah. So that, I mean, when you go that far away, and there are real elements in there, but they are composited together. But their whole environment was extended digitally, and all of the chickens down there would be digital when they're that big, and they're that many. They'd be digital.
That shot particularly drew me in because I was watching it at home. I could go back and watch what they're all different ones doing.
Oh, yeah,
and my eye
yeah.
kept jumping to different ones, and I was like, wow, the attention to detail of. They must have just had so much fun thinking, what would idiotic chickens be doing in this moment, and just go with it.
Aardman they're unsung, but they have a small CG department, and they had a few CG animators who have been Aardman forever. They love Aardman. They are Aardman people. They think like Aardman people. They shoot on twos. They understand comic timing and comedy, or just the vibe of Aardman. Matt Reeves, in particular, who runs that group, is his stuff's so funny. And like you just say, like, Matt, get your team to just do what you just said, Cole, which is just like just do a bunch of like crazy stuff with chickens. And it's kind of I was always adored the Creature Comforts films, in the 90s, because there was always something happening back there as well as the foreground. There was the foreground thing, but the background thing was always good too.
That's it, really, isn't it? It's like when people hear Aardman, they're thinking of very specific elements. I made a video before I became a person granted these beautiful interviews with wonderful people. I used to make video essays on YouTube, and I made one about Aardman where I was trying to understand where the style came from. Everyone, if you say Aardman, a style pops into their head. But when I typed in Aardman style, none of the creators talk about it because it's so subconscious to them. But after digging and digging and digging, I kind of found the three basic elements of what people expect, which is like the Nick Park character design of the eyes close together of the Beano and the big wide mouth like Wallace and Gromit. And then the second part is obviously claymation. And the third part of that is just this kind of unique Britishness that exists, this charming ability to hold space in front, but in the background something absurd is occurring, or there might be elements like visual gags that are always happening that just draw your attention. And when you think about Chicken Run, that's really a great summation of all those unique original elements that make Aardman, with Nick and Peter's style into a film. Whereas you then also have that because, your background thinking about these films that were interesting, like these thrillers, you're able to bring those elements in, the reveal of Mrs. Tweedy coming down and that Hitchcockian way. You're just like, oh my God, it still has that belief. It still has that aesthetic. And I'm wondering, is that something you sat and researched, or just because you've been there so long, you're just like, let's just keep doing this?
It is for me, part of the DNA in there. They've always had this game with Hollywood where they've played with it, like Nick did a train chase, and it's kind of like a Hollywood thing, a train chase, but his is like in a living room with a penguin, and it's like, so there's always that kind of, and the Were Rabbit, I just adore that film. It's just such a fun. So you take a genre and then you just do it in the kind of Aardman way. And I know that, again, it's a bit opaque, and I think you've summed up pretty well what the Aardman style is, but that Britishness it's kind of like not taking it too seriously and undercutting it, but it's still maintaining the drama at the same time. I mean, Chicken Run's that amazing recipe of dark and light, and like it's an incredibly dark thing going on there in Chicken Run, but it's very funny, and so it's kind of like it messes with two things at the same time, which they're my favorite films, to be honest. My favorite films are like they're really dramatic but they're kind of humorous as well, and that you need stakes, you need to set the stakes high, and then having done that, then you can play. And it kind of makes things a little uneasy sometimes, but I quite enjoy that thing. So, and I'd say that about Chicken Run is another thing I love about it is that it's quite more common now to say that animation is not a genre, it's a medium, and it's for all ages, and you can tell any kind of story, and it's cinematic, if you like. But they knew that back then, they knew that they were not going to talk down to anybody, and yet they please speak to the child and everybody, and like be playful and not take it too seriously.
It's, I love that because it's the idea of marrying the absurdity with profundity. They're really good bedfellows if you think about it, like really and truly, because like you said, once the drama is established and that's taken seriously, all the stuff around it, it kind of opens, like the humor opens you up to feeling more when the deep moments hit.
Yeah. And true to life, probably. I mean, like the most absurd funny things happen in some of the most dramatic moments in your life. Like just when everything's going to, rack and ruin. There's usually some, little three-legged dog will walk past or something.
But I also like the idea of speaking to the child and everybody. People lambaste this idea of animation is not for kids, and I understand why, because it's an incredible medium that is capable of anything, but it's also an incredible privilege that this medium speaks directly to kids. That it's got this great vice grip on childhood development, which is a perfect stage to talk to people about bigger events. And I think that's why people hold films so dear to their heart, especially animated films when they're a kid. For me, Chicken Run was definitely one of those. I remember saving up and eating Weetabixes because on the back they had vouchers. If you collect so many, you can send off for a toy, a plush. And I got a Rocky plush, years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he is now, but I loved him. I
wish you could find him, I tell you.
Yeah, I wish I could find him too.
Not worth a lot, I don't think. But just a lovely thing to have.
Well, I do have these little fellas here. Like this wallet's and grommet and everything. I'll just hold them up here.
Oh, you've got the Chicken Run book, actually. You've got them.
I do, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But we used to get these in Kellogg's, the cornflakes. The toys in the set. And they're the set.
I'm with you. I think that's a really great point you make, is that it's actually brilliant that you can talk to kids. It's actually and you're absolutely right. It's such a brilliant. I mean, yeah, we're artists and we're kind of like, we're dealing with important themes and all of this, but there's something about kids that, that time, that moment that is so important, so amazing. And well, some of the best, because I've been on the road for about 5 weeks now and I've been talking about the film and getting audience questions. The best question the other day in Paris, little kid in French, so sweet in French, but the translation was, "Why do you have villains in films?"
Oh wow!
It was so profound, and it was you go to answer, and you're like, "There's so many layers to that answer." Well, I'm still thinking about it, But,
so why are there villains in films?
I think heroes need villains. I think heroes have to have them, otherwise they're not challenged. I guess. But are they the one and the same thing? As I say,
Oh wow! God,
I
we're
don't
going
know.
down a
It's
rabbit
like a
hole.
whole yin and yang thing, isn't it? About the universe and everything.
Well,
you know?
it's funny because generally the story is actually the villain's story, and the hero just shows up, and kind
Yeah,
of mucks it up. Generally,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
most
yeah.
stories.
Yeah, and I don't, so someone said to me when I was at DreamWorks, they said the film's only as good as its villain, and I think, definitely Mrs. Tweedy to me is just
Oh, horrifying,
she's
horrifying.
classic.
Now that the film is out, right, 6 years of work, of thought, of dedication, you're getting the feedback, you're getting everything from the audience, you've released it, it's no longer yours.
Mm.
In the making of this, what really was the kernel of hope or the thought that you wanted people to get out of this?
There's different layers, of course. You want people to enjoy it. You want it to be entertaining. I think you've got to earn your audience's time and their attention, and so not to be bored and to be entertained and to kind of have a great time together. I think, I think it's multi-generational. I hope for kids, maybe think, well, for all of us really, just to like to put yourself in a chicken's point of view for a moment, like the most lowly, disrespected creature on earth, to put yourself down there for a moment and just sort of, and maybe we're not so different, like maybe maybe like we are, like we think we're so grand and powerful, but we're living in a very dangerous world, and there's great jeopardy, and we are only little small creatures too, and so a little bit of that, and I think just consider the plight of other, from Ginger's point of view. I do think she's amazing, and I love things went on while we were making this film, like Angela Merkel invited a million refugees into Germany, like while we were making this film. Things that Ginger would do, that speak to like Ginger's kind of compassion and her kind of idealism. I find is a relevant thing. But yeah, I think but always to have fun. I think really we're here to entertain. We're not here to. We're going to shift the needle a tiny bit, maybe. with all this, but or not at all, in fact, I became vegetarian on this movie.
Wow.
But the crew didn't. They were every Wednesday, they served chicken every Wednesday in the canteen. I was like, guys, what? I was drawing Molly on the blackboard, and they were like, what?
Yeah.
So it's hard to change.
Or too close to trees to see the forest, or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah, it's not easy to budge people, to be honest.
Oh, that is funny. Well, that's good. And these films, they have a lagging metric of relevance, in terms of how they affect people going on. Could be kids watching this now, and it could become the most important film to them for their life.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that idea. Yeah, that it's. I mean, we want to make a splash for now. We're all talking about it now because we want it to get out there. We want everyone to watch it over Christmas. But also, I think, well, I want people to watch it in 10 years' time, actually, or 20 years' time, and I want it to be part of. It is part of the Aardman body of work, and Aardman's it's an amazing place, independent British film studio, been going 40 years. It's been making feature films. It's in some ways a successor to Ealing Studios.
Oh, definitely.
And, that world, and this sits in that body of work, and that team. I mean, a lot of my team on this were on the first movie, and they were really young then. They were just been trained. It was their first movie, and now they're parents, and But I don't know. There's a continuity to the studio, and I love the fact it's independent, and it's a partnership now as well. Like it's the owners, Pete and Dave, gave it to the employees, and it's like a kind of everybody's a partner in the place, and as I say. So there's that longer game, that longer longer game, which I really like about it.
Sam, thank you so much. There's so much more I wish I could ask you and say. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
thank you,
it.
Cole. I always enjoy your shows. I think you're doing a really great job. I do. I think you're doing a great job, mate. You know, with
Thank you so much.
all the stuff. I'm a fan.
Well, I'm a bigger fan. So
I'm gonna go into my little hut now.
Goodbye. Can you find the door? Yeah. I see you've left your.
Headphone.
Were you sitting on a giant egg that whole time?
It's nearly hatched. Yeah,
The next director.
My new. Yeah, the next.
Anyways, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Cole.